tomorrow, you're in the passenger seat with me. It's Passenger Seat Radio. It is February 5th, 2025, and you are on my 13-mile commute home. Welcome to the show. All right, so I said I was going to limit this to once a week, and okay, I lied. So we're going to do an extra one this week. Why not? So welcome everybody. I am, of course, in Phoenix gridlock traffic right now. I'll tell you what, if there's anything greater for traffic, it's assisted cruise control. Assisted cruise control. Next time you're buying a car, if you don't already have assisted cruise control, if you do, you know what I'm talking about. Assisted cruise control is fantastic because in this sort of traffic, which is absolutely ridiculous, you only need to pay like half attention, which makes it really easy to do shows like this, because in all honesty, the assisted cruise control will make sure I keep the proper number of car distances between me and the guy in front of me, blah, blah, blah. It's one button push so that I can get back into the flow. Life is all good. Hey, Pixel Rage, what's up, man? Hey now, welcome. But I did realize that on Monday I forgot one of my topics, and I wanted to bring it up because I'm suddenly fascinated by this. So, just for giggles, and I don't even know how this started. This was in my little group of, my closed personal friend Discord server. We were talking about what Google Photos found, if you happen to use Google Photos, right? What Google Photos found if you search for the Beatles. And it was really interesting. I mean, to me, it's sort of like take the Beatles challenge. Go to Google Photos right now. If you happen to be a Google Photos user and you have the ability, go to Google Photos and type in Beatles, like the Beatles, not like Bug Beatles, but like, John, Paul, Ringo, and George, right? So just type in Beatles and see what comes up. It was amazing to sit and try to play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, trying to figure out how somehow the Beatles were relevant to those photos. Hey, Alex J. Lopez, he's here now. He might have been the one that started this. It was him or Chris that started this whole Beatles on Google Photos thing. Try it out. You'll be amazed at like what it finds. And so I got sucked into this for like a half hour, maybe 45 minutes. So I have things in my Google Photos of the Beatles, right? I've taken pictures of CDs that I've bought. I've got pictures of like album covers, whatever. So those should be found, right? But then there's some things you're looking at going, what the hell do the Beatles have to do with this? And so you're sitting here, I'm telling you, it's a great game. It may even be better if you're like totally fucked up, a little high, a little drunk, and you play the Beatles challenge with Google Photos. And I sat there and I was trying to like pick it apart. It's like, okay, this is a picture of ELO's logo when we went to the Jeff Lynne's ELO concert. Now, Jeff Lynne produced a lot of Beatles music. They worked a lot together. They were buddies. Him and George Harrison were practically inseparable. Was Google smart enough? I mean, did Google make that connection? Or am I just fucked in the head, right? Did Google say, oh, well, he's talking about the Beatles, but maybe I'll show him stuff of Jeff Lynne or ELO. And I just started getting down this huge rabbit hole of Google Photos crap. It was unbelievable. So that was one thing on Monday that I did not get to. And before I forgot about it, I mean, it's on my list, but it's harder to check my list when my phone is up on the dashboard and being the camera. I also got to figure out how to get better audio. So I pulled this show down. I got a little follow-up story for you. So one of the things I'm doing, because a lot of my listeners from Passenger Seat Radio really wanted the show in podcast format, right? So what I'll do is I'll take these shows that I do and I'll dump them to MP3, and then I'll put them up on the Spreaker app that I used to use for my YouTube challenged friends to listen to, my listeners. Well, it turns out, so they say unlimited episodes in the free plan. So for those of you who are new to the show, maybe I was previously on Spreaker, and they took away the ability to do live shows. They just took it away. We're not going to charge you any less, by the way. We're just going to take away features, and you're still going to pay the same amount of money. So that's when we moved here, right, to doing YouTube live stuff. But I do have part of my audience that wants to continue to podcatch them and maybe have limited bandwidth and that sort of thing. So I've uploaded several episodes from here with no problem. Then all of a sudden, the last episode I did on Monday, it wouldn't take it. Oh, you've exceeded your storage, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, what the fuck? What do you mean I've exceeded? You says unlimited episodes. Does unlimited mean, what does unlimited mean? Because I'm not, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. So it turns out, though, that I had, not only did I have Passenger Seat Radio there, I still had Repeat. And for those of you who missed out on that, I've uploaded all the episodes to this channel for Repeat. I think there were 6 or 7 episodes total. Too much work, Repeat. It was really great. I loved the format. I loved everything about it. But it took me 14 hours per episode to produce it. And that's just an audio episode. I mean, that's not clipping together videos or anything. So it was too much work. And, you know, I was hoping it would take off a little quicker. I mean, shit, I did 6 or 7 episodes over the course of, 6 months, probably one a month. And it just didn't work out. People weren't finding it or whatever. And that's fine. So I shit canned that. But that podcast was still sticking in my Spreaker account. So turns out what I needed to do was delete one of my podcasts from Spreaker. So Repeat hit the bucket, and then I was able to upload more episodes to Passenger Seat Radio. So I was afraid I was going to have to come on the air here and say, sorry, no podcatching for you because Spreaker sucks, and unlimited doesn't mean unlimited. But yeah, well, that's what it turned out to be. It was unlimited episodes, but only one podcast, which, okay, good deal. I'm no longer paying $20 a month for Spreaker, so life is good. Yes, indeed. So let's see. I had one other thing on the list. Of course, I can't look at it now. God, there was something that happened that I thought would be worthwhile. Oh, I did pick up the new Dragonlance Chronicles hardback book. For those of you who don't know, right? Because I got new listeners here. So Dragonlance is a book series originally penned by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman back in the early 80s. And in my formidable years, I was really into reading fantasy. And Dragonlance spoke to me like nothing else spoke to me. So I had the first couple of books, and I couldn't stop. I just had to get them all. I had like all 50 books in the series. Blah, blah, blah. I got the graphic novels. I've got the art compendium. I've got the D&D compendiums. I got all that crap. So, big fan, obviously. And I had it burned on my flesh, which you can't really see. You can't really see, but that's a sword and Raceland's Staff of Magius. And then there's an hourglass above it, which represents... Raceland and his ability to see death as it affects all things, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, in fact, I changed my middle name to Raceland. Now, somebody asked me, and this is fair because we haven't talked about this in a while, why the fuck would you take your middle name and make it Raceland? I get it. I mean, listen, people who are rabid fans of shit do crazy stuff, right? I've got a Witcher 3 tattoo. Will I care about Witcher 3 when I'm on my deathbed? I hope so. But, yeah, you know how this works. So, the whole Raceland thing's an interesting story. Some of you probably already know it. Some of you don't. Depends on which episodes you used to catch of Passenger Seat Radio. But when I turned, I didn't really know my birth father until I was about 14 years old. Somewhere in there. He was just the absentee father, the sperm donor, if you will. And so around 14, he reached out and said, I'd like to meet my son, blah, blah, blah. And it was okay. For the first few years, it was okay. I got to meet my 2 half-sisters and the stepmom, and, blah, blah, blah. So that was fine. And When I turned 18, okay, so my last name, this is terrible for security. The name I had before Monroe, which is my father's birth name, right? Was Clark. And Clark came from nowhere, right? Clark was an assumed alias for the ex-con that my mother common law married in the 70s. So while I had the name Clark since like the 5th grade, Clark really didn't mean anything to me, right? And it didn't mean anything to anybody because the guy that my mother lived with for enough years to be a common law marriage, he wasn't even named Clark. His name was like Gene Jacobson or something. It turns out that he gave himself an alias when he got out of prison for being a cat burglar. And I'm like, God, I don't want to be named after some dude with an alias with a cat burglar. So I said, when I turn 18, I'm gonna take my father's proper last name of Monroe, right? Okay, that makes sense, right? You guys could buy that. Unfortunately, my middle name at that point in time was Monroe. Shane Monroe Clark. That's how it is in my yearbook for high school. I was not going to go through my fucking life as Shane Monroe. Not going to happen. So I figured, what the hell? My parents chose my first name. My mother chose my first name. My father chose my last name. How about a little something for me? And that was at the time that I was at my apex with Dragonlance. And so Raceland it is. I understood Raceland as a character. Not the evil part, but those of you who know the books, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, Chronicles was the first 3 books of the Dragonlance series. Acclaimed, renowned. I really liked the second set of books, honestly. I thought that the 4, 5, and 6 were basically all about Raceland and his brother Cameron, and I found that arc to be absolutely amazing. So I really, really, really like those. But there's something about the original, right? So Chronicles has come out a couple of times. The books have been reprinted a billion times with terrible artwork, by the way. Fortunately, I have my first run stuff, which has beautiful artwork. Not that weird shit they came up with. God only knows if it reprints again with whoever it is that owns them now, Hasbro or whatever happens with that. God only knows what those covers are going to look like. But yeah, and they came out with this really nice annotated version where the authors went back and they made, they had annotations about character building and all this other stuff inside their original manuscripts. Well, they took those notes and converted them into, liner notes on the side of the book in the margins. So it was really cool. The annotated thing is really cool, but it's a softback. Mine got kind of chopped up a little bit in several moves that I've had it in. So then came out, of course, this week actually was shipped the Dragonlance Chronicles hardback edition. Very beautiful, beautiful book. So I did a little short of that last night. I thought that'd be kind of cool to show off. Yeah, so here's another nice, interesting story. So I'm one of those people that believe in paying for software. I know that's a very unpopular position to take in today's day and age. Nobody wants to pay for anything. They don't want to pay for games. They want to play free-to-play games. They don't want to pay for software. They want some open source shit. They don't want to pay for anything. Nobody wants to pay anymore, right? And, listen, I'm not saying that there's no high-quality free software. I'm not saying that at all. I am saying, though, that there is sometimes, not always, there are advantages to paying for software. What might those be, right? So, just to give you a couple of illustrations, right? Directory Opus, greatest file manager of all time. Nothing touches it. Yes, Total Commander's good. Yes, X Explorer are good. They are solid performing file managers. They're not free either. At least I don't think so. I think they have a free edition, but they're not free. But, you know, Directory Opus is not free or cheap. But if you can harness its power, it's absolutely worth every fucking penny you pay for it, right? DVD Fab, right? Oh, I use Handbrake. I use Make 8 MKV, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. Make MKV is not free, by the way. At some point in time, you'll start to pay for it. They've got it locked behind that beta cycle thing, where if you don't pay for it, you have to re-up your beta thing all the time. And if you're using the Make MKV Handbrake solution, right, it's a two-step process. What's your time worth? What's your level of effort worth, right? So the idea is Make MKV has to rip your files down to your hard drive, and then Handbrake does the conversion to whatever final format that you want. Because most people who rip their Blu-rays or Ultra HDs are ripping to a smaller format for their own use, their own streaming, like Plex, right? You wouldn't keep a 50 gigabyte file around. I mean, if you've got the disc and you want to watch a 50 gigabyte version of it, you can just watch the disc, right? But most people are looking for some sort of a conversion. The only solution that I know of that does it at the same time, that rips and encodes at the same time, is DVD Fab. And for me, that is worth paying for. That feature is a killer app feature to me. Now, maybe you don't care, right? Maybe you don't care. But for me, it's worth paying for. You know, and I can pretty much guarantee within 48 hours, every brand new release will be rippable, right? That's their bread and butter. That's what they get paid for. So I like the financial incentive for people that are actually writing software. When that's your livelihood, you care a little bit more, right? Open source has its advantages too. Anybody can contribute. Well, sometimes that's a great thing. Sometimes it's not such a great thing. So why I bring all of this up, the full circle to come around to here is, you guys know I've been ripping a lot of CDs, right? Every time I go out, I come home with 10 more CDs. And I rip some of them I store because they're not listened to all the time, sort of things. But over the last 30 years, one of the most common things that people ask me is, what software do you use for X? What do you use for Y? What do you use for Z? And honestly, a lot of people don't like my answers because I pay for software. I pay for the software that I want. Because first off, you know, like I just mentioned, when people's livelihoods are at stake, they work a little harder. They're a little more interested in keeping their customers happy. They're a little more interested in continuing to make money because that's their thing. That's their livelihood, right? But the other thing is, when you pay, there's a certain amount of voice that you can echo to that developer. Now, the developer could say, piss off, right? When I wrote software, when I was writing software, lots of people had ideas, and it's like, yeah, okay, I love your idea, but you're like the only person that's ever asked for that, right? It would take me rewriting the entire application from scratch to make it happen, so thank you for playing. Deleted. But yeah, I mean, when it made sense, I mean, listen, I don't know everything. And so when somebody would come up and say, hey, this would be a really great feature, and I'd look at that and go, shit, never thought about that. All right, let's do it, and I'll make the feature. So I use a tool, just like Directory Opus. It's not free, and it's not cheap, called Easy CD Converter. And this is the Cadillac of ripping CDs. But there was one feature missing from it, right? It does everything. And here's the cool part. You know, a lot of people don't realize that software like this tends to require some licensing. Now, for those of you back in the old days when MP3 first came about, there was a company that literally held the dog collar, held the leash for MP3s. It was a German company called Fraunhofer. And for those, you've probably seen the name Fraunhofer a million times and had no clue who they were or why you were seeing their name. I can answer that question for you. Fraunhofer basically invented MP3, and they did the smart thing. If you want to listen to MP3s, here's free software. Listen all you want. You want to make MP3s, you're going to pay. And that's exactly the model that they used. So Fraunhofer still owns like the patents, worldwide patents to MP3. So anything that pretty much makes MP3s needed to be paying Fraunhofer. Now, obviously, somebody came along and made things like Lame MP3 and other open source MP3 compatible tools. But at the end of the day, just like there's a million ways to look at an Adobe PDF document, there's only one Adobe and there's only one thing. Test reprint probably. Oh, shit, I can't. How do I get that back up? Oh, there we go. What was the first MP3? You know, I'm not completely sure what the first one was. I can tell you, though, that I was there. I was there when MP3 was birthed. And I was there in the scene when MP3 went from, what the fuck's an MP3 to, oh my God, I have to have every MP3 on the planet. And that's another story I've told. But if you guys want to hear that full story end to end, I've got some great stuff. But remember, the first MP3 was probably hatched inside of Fraunhofer's own development environment, right? So who the hell knows what they were ripping? Probably David Hasselhoff, right? German company. That would be hilarious. I should see if that info's available somewhere. But I can tell you that, like a lot of people don't get this, and we need to keep this alive. There was a period of time where media was not ubiquitous. Like right now, you could go on Spotify or whatever. Wait, Susan Vega's Tom's Diner, the original version. How do I get that back up? No! I don't know how to bring that chat back up. So you actually have this information, Michael King? You know this for a fact? I would love to. It brings up the chat, but then it hides it like in 2 seconds. I got to figure out how to use my own freaking thing. But anyway. So Fraunhofer, let me get back to the story because I don't have much time. I got to stop and pick up food for dinner. So Fraunhofer had the ironclad grip on MP3s. You could play it all you wanted for free, but if you wanted to make it, it was going to cost you. Well, if you want the best quality of MP3, now listen, I have not sat with Fraunhofer versus Lame versus any of these MP3 engines, but I can tell you that during the time frame that I was actively involved in this, nothing touched Fraunhofer's encoder, right? Everything else was simply a copy and not necessarily a great copy. So there was a period of time where if you were serious about making MP3s, it was all about using Fraunhofer's encoder. And that's the piracy of that day, right? Everyone was passing around Fraunhofer's encoder, and as fast as humanly possible. Because you could go to Spotify today and hear 90% of the music, well, maybe not quite that much, 80% of the music that's ever been made, right? For the most part. There's some holdouts. There's, oddly enough, missing songs here and there. But for the most part, right, music is ubiquitous. You can go anywhere you want and listen to whatever you want. Almost the same with movies, almost the same with TV shows. There was a point in time where that shit wasn't a thing. So I want you to imagine a time frame where there's a whole bunch of people inside of a text-only based chat. Imagine Discord in, I'm trying to think of what year that would be, 1995. I'm going to throw that out there and it's probably wrong. Imagine a Discord server in 1995 with 10,000 people on a server trading MP3s for the first time. The first time a music file existed digitally in a file format that could be consumed. This was the first time. Think about that for a minute. I mean, that blows my mind that I was present. It'd be like being with the Wright brothers, watching the first air flight. I mean, that's what it's like. I mean, that's how historically significant MP3 was. And I was right there. And there were robots. There were bots, just like Discord has bots. There were bots that had the top most wanted list. And this is how MP3 began, right? This list was, these are the top most wanted songs in MP3 format. And sometimes, some of them weren't even on CD. I mean, there were plenty of CDs, but, you know, these did not exist digitally anywhere, right? So you would go in, this would be a standard day, like on a Saturday or after work, I'd go in, hop in the channel, check out the request list. And if I happen to have a CD, which I never did, by the way, you know, it was like, oh my God, they need this song. They need a song from this weird fucking CD that I've got. And suddenly you're a hero. You're a hero because you provided the first copy of Will Smith's Men in Black. That was my claim to fame. I brought that to MP3. I had a DJ friend who had these DJ only CDs that were sent. I got him to let me borrow it for a half hour. I took it and I ripped it, and it had Will Smith's Men in Black, not even on CD yet. You couldn't buy it. The only way you could get it was recorded off the radio, or happen to have a DJ friend that would give it to you. Brian Holtzen, hey, what's up? So anyway, so my point, I totally got off on a fucking tangent. So Easy CD Converter has Fraunhofer software in it. Now they use it for their FLAC encoding, right? But they pay for that. They pay Fraunhofer. So they're having to pay a license for every copy that they sell. So when you look at software that's free versus paid, that's the one thing you've got to look at is like they've got expenses. It's not just necessarily some dude sitting in his, sitting around, doing nothing, making $50 a hit on this software. No, he's got to pay Fraunhofer. God only knows what they cost. I'm sure they don't cost as much now as they did. But so that's sometimes why you pay for stuff. It's sometimes you pay because you have to pay. Anyway, so the other reason I like to buy software, that I like to pay for software, that I'm not opposed to paying for software, is I get a voice. So one of the things that was grotesquely missing from this software is auto ripping. This seems like the most brain dead fucking feature ever, right? Hey, I want to be able to feed CDs and have them automatically rip until I'm done. Can we do that? No, it doesn't exist. You're going, wait, what? Wait, what? So there's no option? There's no option for me to plug and chug CDs and just have it rip constantly? No. I'm like, what the fuck is that? How can that be? So I started looking around at other software. Other software doesn't do it either. And I'm like, what the hell? So finally I said, fuck, I might as well. All they can do is say no, right? I can ask, and all they can do is say no. So I wrote to the guy, and said, hey, physical media is making this big comeback. CDs are getting very, very popular. I think your customers would love it if you would add the ability to let us just constantly rip until we click a button that says stop ripping. That would be awesome. And the guy wrote me back, believe it or not. He wrote me back and he's like, yeah, that would be a great option. And within a week, I had a copy of the program, pre-release, featured auto ripping, which is exactly what I wanted. As long as the program was running and I had that option turned on, I could be playing Marvel Rivals, I could be editing in DaVinci Resolve, I could be doing anything. And as long as I kept putting another disc in, it kept ripping and kept ripping and kept ripping. That's awesome. Now, does free software do that? Would a free software individual put that in for you? Maybe. Oh, you want that feature? Just go at it yourself. It's open source. Yeah, great. I can't add that feature. I'm willing to pay somebody to add a feature that I want. So that's what I did, essentially, is I paid. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting little side story, and well, maybe you didn't think so. People left. That's okay. Well, listen, I got to get out of here. There's something terrible going on at this restaurant that I'm supposed to be stopping at for food, so Like 4 police cars just left. There's a fire truck there, and there's no place to park. So I'm going to go drive around and see if I can get a spot and go get food. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Shane R. Monroe, Pastor C Radio. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. Take care.